Hi.
Yay. How are you?
Welcome to usually let's see. Say something.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, it's here. No, I messed it up. Hold on.
Hello.
But that worked for my voice.
Anyway. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank
Today
you for
is
having
a
me.
special episode. We have a special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Define special. Let's start there.
Hey, I'm the one asking my questions. It's my podcast.
Okay. Hi,
Ah,
everybody
this
who's listening. My name is Monalissa in full. I'm a spring 2025 master's student doing digital marketing and media. And I'm here with Emmanuel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's start with where are you from?
Zimbabwe, Harare. I
Do
feel like
tell.
everybody's from there. So
Yeah, it's like 80-90% of the students in the school are from Zimbabwe, which is pretty cool.
you think so?
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you're in a setting and the biggest number of people is Africans and let alone Zimbabwe?
Is it not overwhelming if you're not Zimbabwean to then get into a room, like when you walk into spaces and everybody's probably speaking one language and you're like,
Yeah, for them.
okay.
But me, I'm looking at it from an African perspective. It's the first room I've ever been in, and it's like, oh, the majority is not Nigerians, or the
Okay.
majority is not Indians. The majority is some other most random
country that we didn't know of before,
Yeah,
or like we're
which
this
is-
aware of.
Yeah, everything has downsides, but I don't mind it.
There
Africa
should be
to
no
the
downside.
world.
Africa to the world, absolutely.
In Bemba, it's so that would be Africa Kuchalo.
Kuchalo.
Kuchalo,
Yeah. I
which
got it.
means in Luganda it means Africa on the village.
Hmm.
What is it in
I'm not sure we
Shona?
have an equivalent. Oh yeah, we do. Africa Kuvanu. So to the people, yeah.
Vano, like
Africa to
Bantu.
the like Bantu, yeah. Africa to the people.
Teach me some Shona today. Let's begin there.
Let's see. So how are
Say-
you is wakadi hako, but that's more formal. So you can't really say how are you. You can't say to me. You can, but it's more formal.
Okay.
Wakadi.
How? Sounds Chinese. Okay, say hi to the Ugandans in Shona. Look them in the face.
Should it be formal? Formal
Yeah,
Shona.
pick you. Do you?
Kazwai vanweku Uganda. So that's greetings to the people of Uganda.
Oh, cool. She has a dope accent if you haven't realized.
I don't know what that means, and I don't know if it's a good thing when people say that.
It's because it means
The politics of accents.
At
Because
least-
normally when people say that, it's the equivalent of people saying, "Oh, you speak good English."
yeah, so it's like I was listening to this podcast by Lopita Nyong'o.
Mhm.
Actually, she was on Trevor Noah's podcast, promoting her podcast, and she was like, accents are like part of your story. Like you speak a certain way because you lived a certain life in a certain place that gave you the way you sound. So she was speaking about how when she was, I think, auditioning for 12 Years a Slave,
Mhm.
they wanted the African accent in her. And she really tried to tap into that, and it was a problem. She realized she can't really speak like how she spoke when she first came to America.
Okay.
She really tried to go. She had first go back to Kenya for like months again, but again it wasn't like as pure. And then she realized, oh, that's because that's like trying to undo what you have
Your
been.
story.
Exactly. So
But what's the opposite of a good accent? Because whenever something is good, it implies there's a bad. And that's
That's a
my
nice
problem
one.
with the implications of saying somebody has a good accent, because we're implying something else doesn't sound right. Yet, if we're leaning on the angle that you're talking of stories, of people's stories, then everybody's journey is valid. There can't be a bad journey in the same
Okay.
way that there can't be a bad accent. So it can be different. It can be
Maybe-
exotic, but
maybe-
not good.
maybe refined.
No,
means
that's
it's an
worse.
unfair-
That's even worse. That's even worse. Because then it implies some other version is like savage. So you see, it's very political. It's very political. And I know that people mean well when they say it, but I'm worried about what it actually means.
Yeah. Do you have this? We have this thing back home where it's like, it's a joke where like people escort people to the airport and then come back with an accent.
Or like you visit a place for 1 week and then you come back
With an
changed.
accent.
Yeah.
Like I was in
But Africans
Italy
are-
for a week
yeah.
and it's like, oh, now I speak different.
Exactly. I think we are good code switchers, and it's probably like learned trauma that we have inherited. So you know that if I need to go into a place and assimilate well, then it means I have to sound a certain way for them to accept me. So how I speak Shona is different from how I would speak English, and how I speak English with my people is probably different from how I speak English at
Oh, yeah.
yeshiva.
Luckily, that's not a uniquely African. It's actually, I think, a black thing because I was watching this thing by Questlove. He's like the drum of roots. And he spoke about the same thing. It's like when he's in the workplace speaking to white people, he's like different. Then when he meets his black people, it's like, oh, what's up? It's like, so it's not
Code
even strict.
switching,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's not even strictly to like African. It's like when you're with these people, even you're speaking the same language, because for Americans are still speaking English, but like black people English is different from like the English you speak with white people. I wonder if white people have that problem though.
I don't think so, hey, because they've never needed to be accepted by us. You
Oh,
understand? So whatever
touche.
version that they come as, so you still have people who have the thick French accent, and it's enough.
Yeah.
Or the British accent, but they've been away from Britain for 20
Yeah.
years, but they've never had to change it because they're still acceptable. But if you are from Africa, or I don't know, you have to then aspire to their way of speaking so that they can hear you. Like, how many times have you said an answer in class and they're like, pardon?
Exactly. Actually, people back, anyone listening to this who's back home, it's not that we change because we want to change. It's because they literally can't hear you. Like you say a word and they're like, what? They're like, what? I'm like, how? What? And then you realize you have to like slur the word or and then it's like,
we had a funny thing in one of our classes. So the answer to this, whatever the person's suggestion was, they were trying to allude to Top Gear. You know, the car motor show.
Yeah.
But because in Shona, our words are very pronounced. So it sounds like Top Gear.
Yeah.
Right? It's very Top Gear. It's not gear.
Yeah.
So the whole class kept saying Top Gear, because we're trying to make the lecturer hear it.
And
but it was flying over his head because he didn't understand what Top Gear is, right? And then we had to say, oh, Top Gear. Like the gear is fast. And like, oh, the motor show. Like, yes.
So that's why we switch. Not because we want to, but because they literally won't understand. And it gets annoying when you're like interacting with people. So like, okay, fine, I'll speak your version of this so that I can get my coffee and I go. So but that's part of it. Speaking of identity, you have lived in 2 countries, right?
Yes. So I've spent most of my adult years in South Africa. So I am Zimbabwean, born and bred. After high school, I then went to South Africa for my undergrad. So I studied in South Africa for 5 years, did a law degree there. And then after that, I worked there for 2 years. And then pretty much then left South Africa, went back to Zimbabwe, and then from Zimbabwe here. So I've spent most of my formative adult years in South Africa.
So how does identity work for you? Because like you said, formative adult years, that's how you're learning about the world, how people work, how does that play out if you like grew up in a different place, like formally forming your neuroregions that will form an adult person, yet your younger years. So when you like walk in a room, who do you think is making the decisions? South African, Zimbabwe?
That's funny because it almost implies that like there's a split personality where you're like, today I'm South African, but today I'm Zimbabwe. I will say that. So the interesting thing about Zimbabwe and South Africa is we're so close in like relationally, right? Is that a word?
Yeah.
I hope it is. And yet our culture, or at least how we present ourselves as people, is very different. So Zimbabweans sort of lean towards the conservative end of things, like conservative end of the spectrum, whereas South Africans are more outgoing, outspoken, and also their level of democracy does allow such freedom, right? So great people, very outspoken, very outgoing. They, so in a way, when I then learned, oh, life can be like this. Like you can interact with people like this. You can be upfront with people. You can socially put yourself out there. It was sort of a shock to my system. I remember my first year, I really struggled because back home things are very respectful. There's a way that we speak to elders. We don't confront. We're not confrontational.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh no, now I'm in a class where people are literally telling the lecturer that whatever he's saying is probably it's wrong. Exactly, it's wrong. Exactly. So it took me a while, but I think the beauty with experiencing a lot of places that I think most Africans here have that experience where we know more outside of our countries.
Yeah.
The beauty is that is you carry pieces or you take pieces that you think are necessary to your character or things that you think are true to your story. So as a lawyer, as someone who's passionate about advocacy, I'll always borrow or I'll always accredit my outspokenness to my experience in South Africa. Also my mom, because my mom is a badass, but like there are things that the environment will equip you with. So just seeing how South African women interact, how they are outspoken, how are not they don't cower, like they're not afraid
Yeah, I've been told that. So I had a friend who was a lawyer who like did have masters in South Africa. And she told me, yeah, South African women really they approach you. Like if she likes you, she'll come up to you and be like, hey, are we doing this?
But even in
Which is it's not the rest. Africa doesn't have the rest of that. Like most of our women
Yes.
are coy. Like she would like you and would rather die not saying anything.
But I think things are changing. Things are changing. But I hear what you're saying. But even like revolutionary South African women have led some of the most meaningful revolutions in South Africa. So even how they're embedded in the history of South Africa, they have been powerful players. You look at Winnie Mandela. She is not known in history as the wife to Mandela, but she's a
She's a
she's a force in her own. So they even have a phrase, I think it's in Zulu, that says "Watinti Fazi, Watinti Bokodo." I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but it translates to "You strike a woman, you strike a rock." So that's the energy
Interesting.
that they all carry at any level. Like you literally meet the youngest, middle aged, the oldest. Any South African woman is very strong and
I think it helps to have like a strong figure you follow because for most of our leaders, it's like the woman is just a side to the guy,
unfortunately,
and they really don't do anything. They're just like ceremonial, But to your point, South Africa, there was this woman who wasn't just she was actually out there also doing things, and lost her husband and just didn't fade off into the background, just still out there doing things. So I think that also helps in like shaping the image because we follow our leaders. I mean, if I don't see it in my society, I'm probably not going to pick it up. But if I see it, I know like several people who have done it, it's being pushed to me every day. I'll probably also get that. That helps though. Is that there also in Zimbabwe? Do you have like powerful ladies?
So the thing with history is that there's history what happened and there's history what was depicted.
Yeah.
So
It does.
we may never know the powerful figures that are in our history for as long as there's no depiction of women in that sense. So a lot of our African stories lack the depiction, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I think we have a lot of women who are very they were doing good work in the foundations of our history and like our liberation struggles, right? But they were not written in the books. So if for as long as you are 13-year-old Mona who's reading a history text that was written by a man from the perspective of a man, you may never get to know about those figures, yet they were there.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult when people say, oh no, Zimbabwe didn't have such figures or Uganda didn't have such figures, but it's only because they were not depicted in that way. They were not.
But they're always there.
Yes, but they were always there. Like women have always been there.
Like,
they've always been in the stories. But
like
just
in the wars, like our current president always talks about when the bush and all that. And I was raised by like powerful women, and they tell me stories. Like the woman who raised me, like wrote the first, like typed out the first. Like they do these things in the background where it's like without them, you wouldn't even be anywhere. But when the people reach the victory on the stages, oh no, I did this on my own. I'm a bad guy. It's like
so the story is incomplete, and until we then learn to firstly, of course, decolonize, but also include feminist values into our history that are inclusive of women, then the story is not complete. So people think, oh, feminism is this, let's hate men. No, it's simply let's tell the story as it is from both perspectives, including the people who were at the forefront, including people who were, active in the stories.
Interesting.
And without that angle, it means whatever we're learning is simply revised, and there's erasure of women in our history, essentially.
I like that. You really have a strong passion for like human rights and advocacy. I can hear it in your voice.
I do. I don't think if you're an African, you have a choice not to be.
True
Like,
that.
it would
So
be such a
you've worked in South Africa. What are you doing?
immigration law.
Immigration
So
law. Can
I
you
specialized in human rights, but with special focus on immigration and refugee law.
Okay.
I joined it in the most random way. Like, it wasn't like a conscious decision. I just said, no, okay, this feels familiar, because in our final year, you had the choice to choose from a certain list of fields. So you could even choose DLIT, family law, success, property law, administration, or refugee law. So I was like, okay, I'm an immigrant here, so this is more closer to my story. I probably know half of this before I even read the course.
Yeah.
And then I started to read the material, understand South Africa's refugee framework. And you're like, oh, this is something that I actually like. And then you get to meet the people and you hear their stories, you understand how their politics or the politics in their countries have affected their lives at such levels. And you're like, oh, okay, this is something that I'd like to dedicate my life to.
Tell me something about the immigration situation in South Africa, because South Africa is like, so here's how I see it. I could be wrong, but most people who like feel like living in their country, you always start, of course, with the top: US, Canada. If that fails, you look at your Europe. So if that fails, you look at your Dubai. Dubai first, anyway, in East Africa, Dubai is a big deal. And then all that South Africa. That's like within Africa, that's like the only viable option to go to the closest to living in the first world that you can get. But we also know like the opposite. We've all seen the videos online of like South Africans doing crazy shit to like immigrants. How is the situation from someone who has actually been behind the scenes? Does it feel like, okay, because you'd expect, I think the angle is like, you'd expect, we're full Africans, it should be nicer, but versus what we're seeing, it feels like, oh, this is even worse than what the Europeans are doing.
Good question. So there are a lot of elements to your question, right? So there's the legal aspect. So for starters, South Africa's constitution is arguably one of the best in Africa. Like the way in which it was written at the time that it was written, they literally had a panel, I think the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with your Archbishop Desmond Tutu's, the Nobel laureate, were sitting on it and trying to craft something that would speak to what the country had been and where the country wanted to go. So all their laws are sort of framed in that way, where they want to make sure that there's retribution for the past injustices and all of that. And they also center what they call Ubuntu, right, in their constitution. So that philosophy sort of embeds and spills into every single piece of legislation that's then written after that. So similarly, in their refugee law framework, it's on paper, it's very acceptive. So you look at how they are able to simply accept people from other countries, their process from the first point of contact that an asylum seeker comes into a country. So when you enter into South Africa without any paperwork and you're fleeing from whatever situation, you are recognized as an asylum seeker. So you're simply seeking asylum, right? And then they have stations there. And it's one of the only countries in Africa, one of the few countries in Africa that doesn't have a camp system. So their system is assimilatory. It means they allow you to integrate into the community. So unlike in most countries where they have a camp, where you're confined to a camp and the conditions there are not great, South Africa actually allows you to just assimilate into the system. You have working rights, you have rights to education, you have access to all these things, right? So there's the legal aspect that's great on paper, that's working and all of that. But then you also have the institutional xenophobic end of it, where the people on the ground don't understand why they then have to shield the burden of accepting the refugees and the asylum seekers. So whenever a government then does not educate its people on systems, or when it starts to fail to provide security duties to the citizens. So now
someone needs to point a finger.
Yes, someone wants to point a finger. So if people start to struggle with food, your basic rights, food, education, healthcare, the closest person to point to is the immigrant, the refugee, the asylum seeker. So that's where the aggression then comes in, where now it's the natives or the citizens fighting with the immigrants and the refugees and the asylum seekers, because they're saying, oh, this is failing because it's you. So it's failing because our
Government
government is
is failing.
corrupt, our government is failing. Yes,
Huh.
poor administration. It's always you. So that's where the aggression comes from. But it's never because their laws are not great. Their laws are some of the best crafted and well written laws in Africa. But the implementation and some of the aggressions that then come in are coming from outside things, peripheral issues that are very big, but they don't relate to immigrants.
Interesting. I think that's most situations where the locals are always ignored, and they always need to point a finger.
Yes.
How many years did you work in that?
5 years.
Ooh.
Yes.
Do you feel changed? Because that's a lot to take on as a person, to be at the forefront of refugee work and
it's a lot emotionally. I won't lie to you, and I think sometimes when we get into this program, nobody takes you to therapy.
Yeah.
Nobody takes you to therapy beforehand and says, "Hey, this is what you're walking into." But it improves your empathy. It opens your eyes to experiences that are outside of your own. So when you then advocate for certain things, it's not because you've walked the journey, simply because you've learned about it, you've invested time in it, you've heard the stories of the people who are affected by it, and you're like, okay, this is something that I can use my brain and invest in it. I think that's what education should be about. Education, yes, we want to live rich lives, go to Soho, live in Soho, live in the nice apartments, drive nice cars, yes. But education is supposed to solve problems. So if whatever you're studying, you cannot look outside of yourself and say, how does this solve the problems of the world? Then you're doing an injustice not only to yourself, but to the people around you, the people who benefit from you. So be it data analytics and visualization, be it digital marketing and media, be it cybersecurity, you need to look for problems that are in the world that are affecting people and say, how then do I solve this? Because that's the best we can do for ourselves and our communities, even back home, because we are African students, yeah, and we are coming from societies that are plagued with certain things that you just look at and you're like, this is so basic. Energy crisis, water crisis, like this is so basic. This simply needs
We should be
a set of
beyond this by
minds.
now.
Yes, we should be beyond this. It simply needs a set of minds that are dedicated to problem solving. And perhaps some of the limitations are how we approach education. Are we simply approaching education to get into formal employment, or are we approaching education to actually enrich communities? So
I think most of us back home are getting it to get formal employment because it's a means to an end. It's not.
Yes.
We're not, let me learn this. And that's something actually you slowly realize when you get here. It's like the education system is not, they need someone to identify a situation that only they that have walked the shoes and the miles they've walked in can only see. Like it's only you who have an eye for that. And I appreciate this more when I got here, because when you get here, you're trying to try to be or do all these things and try get into the business space, but get into business space from an American perspective. And then you meet all these mentors who tell you, you know what, your best angle is you're from Africa, you walk shoes in Africa. Africa is the next big market, and you're the only one who has been on ground who knows their stuff, which is something valuable. That back home, the value and metrics we use to value something, I may not even know what I'm talking about, but I'm the minister of IT, yet I don't even know how to send an email on my computer. It happens.
That's always the case. Like some old random person who probably can't reboot.
It's like, what do you
probably
do?
Not.
Yeah, so, but here it's like they need validation. They need to know you have authority in the field. You have authority in the thing. You've walked the miles, and then you're the right person to solve that particular problem in that space. And that's what the education system is built around. So you go to class and someone is not trying to teach you, here's how you pass grades. Like, here's how you identify a problem. Here's how, and then if you've identified a solution, they're not telling you a solution. Like back home where it's like A plus equals, they're telling you, okay, if you are to identify a problem, here's how you draft a solution. They're not telling you their solution, they're just telling you how to draft it in case, just to give you this frame of mind of thinking on how to approach things, which is something, like you said, it seems so basic once you see it. You're like, how are we not doing this?
Why are we not doing it? Exactly. And I, like to your point, I also have started to appreciate that solution approach, because in our class, I think I told you about this, where we're doing a project to market Zimbabwean tourism to the US audience. And back home, tourism is like the third largest contributor to our GDP, yet there's still so many gaps. Like there are holes in the funnel where you're like, how is a country that is this rich in natural resources, just nature, wildlife, how are we then failing to capitalize that and tap into that and make sure that we feed the people through that, literally, right? So I think coming up with solutions and being very intentional about how we then use the resources that we have at hand, the brain power that we have to create solutions for home is going to be what makes or breaks our continent in the next maybe decade. And if our generation cracks that code, we can actually experience a reality where people don't need to leave home to experience a good life. And I think that's the best thing we can do for
To your point on tourism, because again, most African nations, that's actually the biggest GDP.
Yes.
Even us, it's the biggest. But I sometimes feel like, again, the people making these decisions don't know. Like these are not authorities, and this is not someone who actually studied tourism. This is someone's uncle who just dropped in the position. And it's like, okay, you're making all these decisions, you don't even have any data, and that's something that studying from this side has made me appreciate data-driven decisions. You're like, okay, you think it's this, but the data says this. You see, and then being like, okay, I was wrong, let's follow this. That's a huge gap that we don't realize is a big problem, because if you have to look at how most of us make decisions back home, it's this, so it's always been done, this so and so is the head, he says, and so we are going to do that. You're like, okay, but what's the, and you come designs and this side, and it's not how people actually do things.
Here they're asking what's the
it doesn't matter how big you are or how big your role is or how big your title is. If you say something and there's like no validation, no one is going to listen to your shit. They're going to be like, no, because then there's actually consequences and they know how things are. But back home, it's like, no, I'm the boss, we are doing this. It's like, and then they throw billions to the problem and nothing comes out. And it's like, oh, and then the next generation of people come and they're like, what they are new, they don't know what to do. It's like, what did the previous people do? Okay, they also replicate that. So you find that people are doing all these things, but when you trace back to the initial thing they're following, because we're from Africa, we have an ancestral culture mindset. It's how our ancestors have it, how everyone has been doing it, so we keep doing it. But then you trace back, it's like, okay, the initial person who did this, the initial, like, domino, what was that
thought process?
Exactly. Was it actually valid or rooted in something, solid, or it was just vibes and inshallah, and now, generations down the road, you're still running on vibes and inshallah.
Absolutely. And we're just rolling it. But to your point, maybe if I can ask, what are we doing about it?
Yeah, that's
the problem, but what are we doing about it?
I would like to think, okay, from like a granular level, people are doing, because you'd see, I worked in what would kind of be an informal sector. It's like a print, production, branding industry back home. It's all on one street. It's called Nasa Road and Crew Road. So for years, the people who ran that industry were like informal and educated people. And then our generation comes in and it's like, oh, he's someone with a degree from the best university in the country, but they're working in that industry. And you could see the change, not to like the whole ground level, but to like how they approach their business, how they're, someone who has like a design background, our friends who are really doing amazing things with their companies on that street. And you can really see the difference. You can see longevity, you can see. So on a granular level, we are doing, because I'll run my thing to the knowledge that I have and to the where I know, not because old school, uncle, whatever my grandpa did, you see. So on a granular level, we are doing something about it. The problem is now when you try to blow that up to change an industry. Exactly, because those are not moving. It's still the old people still in charge. Yeah, so, but get enough of those granularities. That's why sometimes I tell people, like, do your thing to the best of your ability. If we can't have 1,000 of those people doing the best, and that's an institution now that's doing something to the best of their ability.
That takes longer. It takes longer.
We have no choice.
Which probably means our kids will inherit the same problems that we have, and they won't enjoy luxuries that we also didn't enjoy.
But also to time, there's something also we tend to forget. Time, we can't, there's no hack around that. You have to put in the time. These countries that we admire, I mean, this country got independence in the 1700s. That's how many centuries ago, So a problem they solved back then, we're just starting to get to know about it. No matter how much technology does things, there's just some things that you just have to walk through and know. Yeah, so I think there's no work around that. give us time, give us, we didn't colonize anyone. Could have tried. Ethiopia maybe would have gone out and they were not colonized. They should have colonized some people.
But you see, even with the states that were not colonized, you look at the development thing, you're like, I feel like it's not where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it could be an environmental thing where now if you're surrounded by others that were colonized and not doing well, you're like, oh, okay.
And then you also just chill out.
So,
Anyway, code switch 360. Years later, South Africa, refugee law, very passionate, and now you're in New York.
yes.
Let's start with that your first culture shock. I mean, when you're from South Africa, I guess the difference is not that much. Was it that big, if any?
It's not. I don't think anything really shocked me when I came here, except how fast it is. New York is very fast paced.
That's
everybody's
even
rushing.
someone comes from Cali and comes here.
Exactly. So
That's a New York
it's
thing.
not unique to just the US. It's just a New York thing. So I think that's the only thing that I was shocked by and didn't like, because I'm a slow paced girly. Let's just walk. Let's just
the middle states, Nevada.
Washington was soft for me. Like it was like people mean business, but it's
slow.
The pace is good. It's a healthy pace. Here people are frantic.
Yes.
People are rushing. People are just
money needs to be made. It's the city that generates the most money in the world. It's like the richest city in the world. So it's like people have to go.
But it's stressful. It's just stressful to be around because there's overstimulation going on around.
Oh yeah, coffee at like 5 in the evening.
Do you know, before I moved to New York, I didn't drink coffee because it gave me heart palpitations, like proper heart palpitations. You feel like I'm having a heart attack. But now I just chug a tub of donuts or Starbucks, and I'm like, oh, let's go, let's freaking go. Like,
I keep telling people we grow a lot of coffee in Uganda, but we don't drink any of it. Like we're not a coffee culture people.
It's just for export.
We do a lot of tea, but we just get the coffee, take it out, and also. Back home, if I took coffee for like even 2 days in a week, I would have migraines like on a random Sunday night. But now it's like, oh.
The first time I had a tiramisu dessert, because it's coffee based, I was awake for like 2 days. 2 good days. That's how bad it is. But now, for New York.
The world's most legal drug.
Right.
Okay, fast pace. What else?
Fast pace, I think people culturally, Americans are more individualistic than home. So home is more communal based. You walk into a space, you greet people, you acknowledge that they exist, you even help people. Here you try to hold like an older lady's bag because she's going up the stairs and then she shrugs like, don't touch my things. Or you walk into a place and you say hi and it's awkward because now they're just staring at you like, why are you greeting? What do you need? So you just go with the flow. But I don't know what that means long term. Like, how does that rewire my brain?
No.
What does it mean for
and you know that's
brain?
a uniquely American problem. Like on the spectrum of individualism, America is like the next closest person is like Canada, and they're like, and then like no one else. it's only them.
Crazy concept.
The second person is Canada, and the gap between America and Canada is insane. And the most communal your Asia is Japan.
You've lived in Canada.
Yeah, for like 3 months. But they are nicer. They're like, oh, hi. They will greet you, but it felt like an obligation to be nice at some point. That's the funny thing with Canada. It felt like, like I'll be nice to you, but I won't like go out of my way to help you. Kind of nice. It's strange. But that is it's a uniquely American problem. And I don't know, maybe it plays out in the long run, or maybe it doesn't. I'm also afraid of what it's making me. Actually, what I'm afraid of is what New York is doing to me in terms of like fast paced. Like if I get used to that, everywhere else. That's why they say if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. Or once you're in New York, it's hard to be because you get used to like this high level of operation that when you go everywhere else, it's like the Flash or who's the guy, X-Men fast speedrunner guy. No, that's DC, the X-Men. The guy who runs really fast. So imagine that guy to the rest of that. Like all of you are moving in slow-mo. That's what I'm scared of. Like if I go to any other place or even leave the US and go back home, it's like, guys, you're not moving fast enough.
Like your nervous system is just wired to be fast
Go,
and
go, go,
moving.
go.
Exactly, which is bad.
Quicksilver.
It's terrible.
That's actually worried me, like legit worried. Like,
And
it becomes addictive.
Yeah. For me, the disconnect is how the culture is not friendly and all of that. But when you go to networking events, everybody's talking to you like, "Oh my God, hi, nice to meet you. I like what you're doing." You're like, if I met you in the train, you wouldn't even greet me. So there's a disconnect between the networking culture, which makes the relationships very
plastic.
transactional.
Yes.
Yes. I was telling a friend that I'm struggling with going to these networking events because they feel so inauthentic to me. Because I know that you wouldn't treat me this way outside. Of this room.
Quick story. So I go to this tech mixer thing. You know, group of people we're talking, and this group of girls. We're talking that really nice, everything.
Good vibes.
And then the event ends and I step out, we're on the stairs going down, and it's like I've never met you in my life. It was so strange. Like they don't even like it stopped in that space.
That's crazy.
Outside, nope. There's some guys who
because sometimes you can just acknowledge the head nod, like the universal I know you.
Like, but the guys, well, those like this. Actually, to me, this is, and I learned this from Canada. So usually when people go to his network events, it's like a numbers game. Talk to her, talk to a billion people, get their LinkedIn. And I did that, but in Canada, I learned it's more like I would rather find one person and really go, instead of breadth, I go depth. Like really get to know this person. So I spend my time with like one person the entire time. Other people pass by, hi, but I'm like with one person. So I did that at that event, and the guy was really nice guy. He works in venture capital, private equity stuff, and him, when we even left the event, we went out to McDonald's, got something to eat. We really made like a strong connection because I was like, and I told him, I'm like, I've been to these kind of things. I'm not the kind who's going to, let me go now talk to I'm just going to sit here. Let's actually have an actual connection, So that's how I approach them.
Okay.
But you could see that who are doing like the,
speed dating.
Exactly. Exactly. And then those people, when you step out, it's like, they don't even remember what you talked about. So yeah, that does happen. It's strange.
It's very strange. Especially if you look at the disconnect, it's just transactional. Yeah, transactional, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, so now you are at Cats. Yes. Oh, she's new by that. She just came January, December. You landed in winter.
Ooh, brutal.
For you.
Brutal.
I like the winter.
I thought I liked winter because I knew African winter. Right?
Does Africa have winter? Do we have winter?
Okay.
But we have rain.
It is winter. Exactly, it is winter.
Just 25 degrees.
I knew that, right? And like the coldest I'd ever been was a day when it was 6 degrees Celsius in South Africa, and that was the coldest I'd ever been, right? And then I moved here and I'm seeing minus. I'm like, what are we doing? I froze. And the thing is, like, I like fashion. I like fashion.
There's no weather. Rock your bikini bottoms
and I'm trying to balance a good fit with being warm. It takes a lot of work.
What's that? Daisy Dukes? Like the way
it takes a lot of work because now you want to balance aesthetic with warmth. But eventually I got the balance, and then you like know where to get the good jackets and the thermal leggings and the tops and all of that. And I'm here now. I survived.
Tell them.
I survived.
Winter did come. Winter's coming. Anyway, but actually it was this is New York winter. It's not as bad. And to America it's like the worst. Oh no,
apparently it was the worst in like
when the summer is really hot. That means the winter is going to be really bad, and apparently last summer was really hot. We didn't know, we just come, but we are told you that was bad. But I don't know, it was okay. Me.
Lucky you.
Like I liked everything being white and clean. Plus
it looks very clean. I'll say that. Like for once you forget that New York is dirty.
Yeah.
It's clean. It's pure clean.
Plus even like because the houses we stay in are made of like wood and other funny material. I don't know. I like them better in the winter because everything is cold and it's like always fresh,
Okay, I
And when
I
it's
see
like
the appeal.
warm, there's like a certain, I don't know, aura of scent that comes from these wood buildings. I'm like, nah, I like the winter.
See, I hear it. I hear the appeal. I hear it.
So you came in December, so that's like at the peak. It's actually surprisingly peaks around Jan. That's like the worst it gets.
I felt the same. But I think by the time we had orientation, like mid-January, I was okay. Like I was one of the few people who didn't have a beanie hat. Orientation. Like Prof. Eric is always laughing that when he walked into the room, like everybody had a
Everyone.
woolen hat and a jacket. Like, what the hell? You're in a room, remove the coat. And we don't know that culture where you remove the coat because their coat, like central heating is not really a thing unless
so
you're
it's
in
like,
like homes don't have central heating normally. So you carry your jacket
wherever
indoors.
you
Yeah.
go.
And then here it's different, but still your mind's like, not convinced. Let's wear this.
Anyway, so it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was nice.
Monalissa. How do you pronounce your names? All of them.
All the way. So if it's short,
Tell them, not me.
they probably won't even know me. Like, in short, it's just Mona. But if you're Shona, you call me Mona.
Oh,
Yeah. Like if I hear somebody say Mona, then I know, oh, homie.
that's
Right.
Okay.
But then if you want to say it right, Mona is fine.
Monalissa
Monalissa.
is with the double S, which is new.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us that story before we go?
So my sister named me Monalissa
Your sister.
because I think she was reading about French history or French art, right?
Okay.
And then she's like, the portrait. And then she told my mom about it.
And your mom was like, cool, let your
she
younger
was
sister
only
name you.
8. She was only 8 at the time.
Let your
which is
8-year-old sister name you.
absolutely.
Very
Shout out to my sister, by the way. Love you. So I think because my mom was just like, oh, okay, it's just a name. She just put in 2 S's in there, and I don't know the logic. I've never asked. Maybe I should, but it has 2 S's. But I don't bother correcting people about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not too picky. Maybe if it were an African name, you would die trying spelling it right. But
Okay.
it's
So, what do you prefer, Mona or Lisa?
I hate Lisa.
But is Lisa short for Monalissa, or there's like another
No,
short
there's
form
just
of-
another Lisa. Like you can just be a
It's just
Lisa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
Lisa.
you just be a Mona?
I don't think so. I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
How
I
do you
think-
pronounce this Z name?
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. Every time I ask you to pronounce that, it's different.
So the phonetics, yeah.
Okay.
Z, bo, wa. So you know how you say Zimbabwe, like the BW at the end, it's
Yeah.
the same vowel line. So Zimbabwe.
Hmm.
But to be fair, even Shona people
What does it
say
mean?
it wrong. It's a certain dialect in Zimbabwe called Vitori where they call mushrooms hoa.
Oh, okay.
So now if it's a big mushroom, then it's like ziboa.
You're named after a mushroom?
Yeah, and I love mushrooms.
Don't! Which type?
All of them. Give me oysters, give me the ones that look like proper fungi. I mean, they are fungi, like mushrooms are fungi, but
Huh. Surprising.
give me
What? Ovotiko? That's why we call mushrooms in HT. What's the big one?
Say-
Is it
say
all
again?
Ovotiko?
Otiko.
We do have a name, Sebutiko.
Sebutiko.
Is that what Sebutiko is? I have a friend called Sebutiko. Shout out to Arnold if you're watching this.
Is that a surname or second name?
It's like,
That's the surname.
yeah, it's a surname. It's
So-
Luganda,
so
right?
does-
Yeah,
Does it mean I would be Sebutiko in
You'll be
Luganda?
Nabutiko, I think. I don't know. Is there Nabutiko?
Yeah, sure. You know it.
Nabutiko.
Yeah.
When I listen Nabutiko. That's dope. That's great. No, now I have a new name. Monalissa Nabutiko signing out.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
Okay.
Great conversation.
Would you like to give us an outro, a word to any South African, Zimbabwe,
I am
Uganda,
only
African?
Zimbabwean.
Wow.
I am only Zimbabwean. I don't know, man. Just use your education for something good. Let's improve things at home. Let's improve things in Africa. Let's develop our homes. Hey, like let's use this for good. We have this beautiful chance that most people don't have the privilege to access. Let's make it count.
Cool. You had it here, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yay. It always is.
That was fun. And long.